Today, we're exploring how associations think about learning and how that connects to renewal. I'm joined by Kurt Heikkinen. Kurt has built and exited multiple SaaS companies, led mergers and acquisitions, and raised more than $150 million in venture and private equity capital. He's helped companies grow from startup to over $50 million in recurring revenue. And today, he's focused on helping associations and mission-driven organizations rethink how they serve and engage their members. Kurt, welcome.
Sharon, thanks so much. Well done with the last name. I'm excited to spend this half hour with you in the audience.
Absolutely. And thank you so much. Kurt, you've spent much of your career building companies in fast-moving markets. I'm curious, what drew you to the association space?
Yeah, great question, Sharon. As I entered this space and started to learn more about the mission-driven nature of these organizations, I was just compelled to help. After meeting with dozens and dozens of executives, I heard both their passion and mission, but also the challenges they face. And so after a couple decades serving the corporate space, I felt compelled to jump in and really help leaders of mission-driven organizations realize their full potential.
Well, why don't we jump into it? When I hear association leaders talk about value, connection, and education, it always comes up. I think renewal conversations are still happening everywhere. And sometimes I think about it like Netflix versus Instagram, right? Netflix gives you a huge library of content, and then Instagram keeps you coming back for more because it feels dynamic, it feels social, even though I think the influencer community might be dying a little bit. So I'm wondering if associations sometimes operate more like a content library than a living network. So my question for you, Kurt, and from where you sit, what truly keeps members coming back year after year? And what do associations tend to overestimate?
Yeah, it's a really great question. And I think you can see some of the parallels from an experience standpoint between Netflix and Instagram. But when you think about the core of associations, many of them view themselves as the trusted place, the trusted resource for their members. Some describe themselves as that community of practice where their members truly care. They want a sense of belonging, and they want a place where they can not only progress in their career, but share and give back. And so we do research every year. We call it the State of Member Experience Research Report. And we launch it every year at the annual ASA annual event in August. And for the last 5 years, the prevailing answer to the question, why do you join and why do you stay, has been 1, for the peer-to-peer connections, and 2, for the ongoing learning. And so that is at the core of the member value proposition. Do I belong? Can I connect with peers like me? And is this an environment and a place where I can continue to learn and grow? And so those are the key factors that drive engagement and ultimately retention.
If learning and community are structured separately, what does that do to the member experience?
Yeah, it creates a fractured and siloed experience. When you think about our own experience as consumers, when we're interacting with a company or a product, and the experience is different from the time we bought it to the time perhaps we're asking for service, it becomes frustrating if they don't know us and they don't demonstrate that they understand who we are and what our needs are from one step to the next. And so having those experiences separate can only lead to frustration. And that's what we hear over and over again. So what's the difference? What's the answer? An experience that is seamless, that's personalized, that's unified, where the member, the learner, feels like you know them throughout every step of the journey.
So are you saying that one of the shifts that you're seeing is mostly generational and how they're learning now?
I think that's by far one of the shifts is the expectations of early career members. And you think about the expectations of early career members, the concept of membership is even foreign to them. They've grown up in an on-demand consumption, subscription-based world. That's their world, whether that's in academia or whether that's from a entertainment standpoint. You cited Netflix earlier. So that is one of the major shifts. But for all of us, regardless of what generation you're in, where you are in your career, the last 10 years has informed our own expectations regarding experience and what does a modern experience look like. And personalization is at the core of that. If we as consumers, let's just separate learning and look more broadly in our everyday life as consumers. If we don't experience something that's fast and easy and relevant, where the entity we're interacting with, the service provider or the product company, doesn't know us and doesn't demonstrate they know us and understand our needs immediately and guide our experience, we opt out. And that's regardless of age. Anyone who has been using a mobile device for the last several years has experienced that and now knows what good looks like. But furthermore, back to career stages, we've also studied a lot what are the attitudes, behaviors, and beliefs of professionals by stage. And so there are expectations that early career members have. They want to know immediately, do I belong here? Can I connect with peers like me who have solved and encountered some of the things that I'm experiencing early in my career? For those individuals mid-career, they want to know how can they take the next step in their career? How can they climb the ladder? How can they advance in their domain? They might be considering a pivot, and how will this community help them learn and grow in that regard? And many times for those late in career, they want to give back. They want to share their wisdom and their expertise from the last 2 or 3 or 4 decades, and they want a forum, a learning community to do that. So when learning and community aren't together, when it's fractured and siloed, you miss out on so many opportunities to engage your learners, your professionals, your members, and meet them where they are and truly tap in the power of community.
So it sounds like continuity may matter more than isolated moments, and having these two together really matters more. So I think it raises a bigger question about how learning actually works. And, you've already mentioned that, adults and different generations don't learn in isolated events. It tends to happen over time, conversation, and context. And again, as you mentioned, a lot of this education is still structured around single programs. So what do you think leaders most often misunderstand about where learning value is actually created today?
Yeah, it's interesting, Sharon, because we meet with hundreds of clients every year and prospective clients. And I think intuitively they understand that the learning paradigm has shifted. I think they do understand that it is more social in nature. It needs to be more on demand. Micro learning needs to become a part of this, that individuals don't have the time or energy to sit down and take hours of courses by themselves. They are looking for that connectedness, but some of them are struggling to understand how to make that happen, or they're largely dependent on a couple primary sources of revenue for their organization, a single annual conference, a couple main courses that drive 60 or 70% of their revenue, that consumes their time and energy every year, that prevents them from moving beyond and innovating beyond that. And most often, and why organizations come to Forj, is because the technology they're using is holding them back, or experience how today's technology better enables that breakthrough, better supports that type of more dynamic, social, cohort-based learning through the concept of a learning community as opposed to isolation. And there's still a place, of course, for so many of these courses that lead to credentials and certifications that help ensure that individuals are qualified in their field. But there are many opportunities to engage in learners and advance their career and capture their expertise outside of those single one-time events.
What would you say are some of the risks that will show up when learning is treated with those one-time transactions, that annual event, that one big main course? What risk will usually show up for an association?
Well, I think I know our clients are already seeing that in the form of churn in membership. Many organizations in the association spaces, have retention numbers that aren't what they want them to be. Their retention might be 70% or 75 or 80%. So that's the first place to look, is if you're not delivering a continuous, always-on engagement, that's the first thing that's going to be impacted. Or your one primary course that they are mandated to take is the breadwinner, but you've invested so significantly in other pieces of content. We hear this problem statement over and over, and it sounds like this. We have great content, but it's underutilized and underconsumed. We hear that over and over again. And so the way to help our clients reimagine a move away from a one-time experience, we ask them to talk about what makes their annual event so great. Or we ask a more broad question like, what is the highlight of community vibrancy or vibrancy in your membership throughout the year? And inevitably, they highlight their annual event or conference. And they describe with superlatives how great it is, how individuals are connected, how they're sharing best practices, how they're learning, they're growing, how excited they are, and they can't wait for it to happen next year. Right. And then the risk is if you're over-indexed on that single event, that single source of revenue, you miss out the other 360 days a year. And right. Why not? Why can't you? And you can. Our clients are creating that always-on engagement where that same sense of vibrancy, the same sense of engagement, that content that you've invested in that gets overlooked is being unlocked. It is being captured. It is being found. It is being utilized 365 days a year. That's the power of a learning community.
So really, it's less about delivering content, more about creating that context, right? And go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, well, that's just it. It's all about relevancy. Most of our clients don't need more content. They need a form and they need technology to enable it to ensure that that content is served up through a personalized experience in a relevant way. So members don't have to go search for it and find it. And think about how frustrating it is when you have to go 2 different places to search, let alone one. But you shouldn't have to search. When you think back about our consumer experiences, whether that's on Netflix or Spotify or Amazon, how much searching do we do versus how much serving up is done? How much content is presented to us based on the fact that we're known? And so that same thing should exist in a learning community. Members deserve to be known, to understood, past behaviors reflected. And whether that's content or connections or conversations, now that's the power of AI-driven learning communities. So it's no longer about searching across 2 different sources where you have to log in twice, but it's more about the relevancy of content, connections, and conversations being served up to me.
So you're talking a little bit more about conversations and communications and connections, and this just brings us directly to community. Let's use Peloton for an example, right? I don't do it a lot, but when I do, there's something fun that I love about it. You know, you do the workout, but there's this leaderboarding community, right? Where, you know, you just kind of stick to it. So it's not just you doing the workout, but now you're like, you know what? I've got to beat Tally Girl 312 because she's on the leaderboard and she's number 2 and 1, right? There's just a sense of engagement that you get from, you know, that type of experience. And there's a shared experience there. So I think what I'm saying is, you know, associations have already potentially built that within their members, but it's not always activated intentionally, right? So Kurt, my question for you is, why does peer connection create a kind of learning value that content alone simply can't deliver?
Yeah, it's, I think you said it. You used the phrase shared experience. If it were just about you getting on the treadmill and consuming a course or content, it would be different than knowing that you're going through that experience together. And in associations, more than just general social communities, there is a passion around the subject matter itself. There's a deep passion around advancing the body of knowledge. And so communities unlock shared experience and shared expertise. And done right, it's not just about dipping in and dipping out and taking a course or reading a document. It really is about how can I learn side by side from my peers, informally as well as formally, and how can I also contribute to that body of knowledge or that community of practice?
Is there something that separates organizations that truly leverage community from those that just simply provide the space for it?
Well, I think that's a really great question. We see really, when we first start working with a client, these are organizations who have come to us, who are not yet clients of Forj. We see really three different profiles. We see individual organizations who have never used community before. And they're just exploring for the first time. Maybe they had a listserv, but not truly a community. We have organizations who have tried to adopt community, and in their minds, it's a check the box member benefit. They have it because their members ask for it, so they check the box and they say they have it, but they wouldn't describe it as vibrant. And they often say we struggle with engagement. And then we have organizations who come to us where they would describe their community as having engagement, but they struggle to really tie it to the member value proposition. And they're wanting to think more broadly about the value of community and tying it to business outcomes. So those who really get it, and we're seeing a shift. Those who really get it think about community through the lens of what business outcomes does a vibrant community generate. And if you can quantify and measure engagement, truly measure it, not by logins, but by vibrancy in your community, and tie it to outcomes such as retention, attraction of new members, the generation of additional non-dues revenue, or the increased consumption of content that you've had for some time that has been stale or underconsumed. That's really where the power of community and learning community comes in. And that's how we see more and more leaders thinking about community, not a check the box member benefit, but a real driver for value and member value proposition.
Let's take a quick break with a word from our sponsor. Do you have members who finish a course and then just kind of disappear? With Journey by Forj, learning doesn't stop at course completion. The real ROI of learning happens after the course. Members move seamlessly from formal coursework into a connected community where they can apply what they've learned, ask real-world questions, and continue the conversation with peers who understand their challenges. It's not just an LMS, and it's not just a community platform. Journey by Forj brings learning, conversation, and insight together in one seamless experience. So instead of isolated courses, you create an active, social learning environment where growth actually happens. To see how it works, visit forj.ai. That's FORJ.ai. You worked with EcoAmerica, where courses and community originally lived separately. Could you walk us through what was happening there?
Yeah, they train thousands of climate ambassadors every year. And so when you think about that, these individuals are there. They are there because they have a passion for the cause. They're not required to fill this role. This is not a course that they have to take to maintain a certification in their field and to maintain their employment. And so experience matters in those instances, as in most. And so they had two separate experiences. And what they know, they were really trying to drive not only education for someone to be deemed and qualified as an ambassador, but create a sense of how best to fulfill that role through the learning from your peers. And so previously what would happen is they had a community and they had this course, and individuals inevitably would go take the training because they wanted to support the cause and get the certification to be an ambassador. But that's when the experience would stop. They would never log into community because they saw no purpose or meaning for that. And many times they didn't come back to update or refresh their training. And so through the power of Forj, by unifying community and learning together, that's where we unlock great potential. And so now you look at an experience where pre, post, and pre, during, and post, you're actually engaging in conversation with your peers. It makes learning social. It makes it interactive. It's not just a course that you check the box on. You have a shared experience and a shared purpose And what has happened now as a result is their community has grown significantly. They're recruiting more and more climate ambassadors, and in a higher percentage of those individuals are coming back over and over again to update their training. So really great testament and story around the power of community and learning being a unified experience.
So it sounds like learning became something that the members were a part of, not just something that they finished, not just checking off the box. Kurt, why is it important for associations to understand and evaluate the difference between integrating community learning and technology intentionally built for unified community and learning?
It's a great question. And one of the things that I think is really good news for our industry is we've seen a rise in RFPs, requests for proposal, that ask for community and learning together from a technology standpoint. And thankfully, we've also seen competitors in our space talking about it as well. And so there's really been an increase in understanding of the why behind the value. And so I think it's really important that buyers are able to discern between the difference between integrated solutions and those that are intentionally built to unify that experience. And so here's probably the simplest way and the word of caution that I would offer. If you have an integrated solution where it's two separate technologies still, yes, you'll get the benefit of single sign-on. You may get the benefit of a basic personalized experience because now you can tie a discussion thread to a course or a course to a discussion thread. But you're missing significant opportunities that only get unlocked when it's a single unified solution. It starts with a unified experience. It continues with AI-driven personalization. In a unified experience, we know every click. We know every conversation. We know every piece of content that has been consumed. We know every area of interest, and it gets back to serving up that experience, guiding that learner or that member through their journey. You also get deeper insights that don't exist when you have two separate solutions that are simply integrated. And those insights unlock understandings of your members, their needs and their interests in ways that you didn't previously have access to, or other content ideas or program ideas, because now you know what your members are talking about, what they really crave, and how they enjoy learning. Beyond that, you simplify your tech stack and you reduce your costs. And so the difference between integrated gets you partially the way there. A fully unified solution is where the true power is unlocked.
So what organization or mindset shift most often unlocks this kind of connected experience? I know you've touched a little bit about it, but can we dig deeper into that?
Yeah, please. I actually grew up on the client side, buying and selecting and implementing software from vendors. And I talk about my experience. I say I stopped 29 years and counting. It's my 29th year over and over again. So I've been around a little bit. And there's data that shows, regardless of buyer community or technology vendor, upwards of 40% of B2B buyers, that's what we're talking about here, B2B buyers, associations buying services or technology, experience purchase regret within the first 60 to 90 days. Why? Because now that they're going through implementation, they're realizing that the solution they purchased doesn't adapt to their current or future anticipated needs. To your question, what is that mindset shift or organizational shift? It starts with start with the member experience in mind. Don't dust off your old RFP from the last time you bought an LMS or community solution and use that as your requirements. Start with a mindset shift around member experience in the moments that matter. 2, identify a business champion as the stakeholder. IT is great. They do a great job of helping to validate how things will work, but you really should have a business owner driving and sponsoring the evaluation and tying it to business outcomes. And 3rd, break down the silos. Stop buying technology where it's just one department or the other. Don't buy an LMS without engaging the membership team, and don't think about an upgrade to your community solution without engaging your learning team and your marketing team in that experience as well.
You bring up three really great points. And, I think a lot of associations are still measuring learning by how much the content they offer. But as you said, that's just not the most meaningful metric anymore. So, what's one assumption leaders should seriously rethink right now?
Yeah, and I meet with dozens of CEOs a year, and over I hear a concern around future relevancy. It's not this year or next year, it's 5 and 10 years out. So the risk isn't assuming that you'll always exist, and the risk isn't assuming that your members will always want to be members. And so the biggest fundamental a way of rethinking about your future is the challenge of competition that has increased exponentially over the last 5 to 10 years in so many industries. Your members have mind share and wallet share that they're making choices around every day. And if you do not create the experience that is meeting their expectations, you will lose relevancy and you will lose your place as the trusted place for them to come and stay.
Kurt, I really appreciate the conversation. It feels like the future of association learning isn't just more content, it's more connection. I appreciate you sharing your perspective today.
Yeah, thank you so much. And if I could leave one quick thought, because I know change is sometimes hard. It could sound overwhelming. Many of our clients have a staff of 10 or 20 or 30. And so the thought of changing sounds like too much. Here's a mindset shift in terms of changing vocabulary internally. Instead of saying our LMS or our community or our education, start to adapt the vernacular of our learning community, whether that exists for you or not today. Start using that vernacular, our learning community, and see how it starts to change the conversations inside of your organization and how you receive the feedback from your learners and your members. Sharon, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it. It's been a great time together.
Thank you, Kurt, for the final words. Appreciate it. Learning community. You've heard it from Kurt. Thank you.
Thank you.